Welcome everybody to DLA. I'm David Lombardino, and today I have the pleasure to be speaking with Daniela Haehn. Daniela recently matched to urology, and she's going to be talking to us today about using DLA's services for her personal statement and ERIS application. Hello, Daniela. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, David?
I'm doing well. First of all, let me congratulate you for matching. That must be just a great excitement for you.
Yeah, thank you.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to DLA?
Okay, so I'm an international medical graduate from Colombia. I graduated in 2015. So I decided to move to the United States to pursue my career in urology. That was my main goal, urology. So I decided to start enhancing my CV, making it like more competitive for my application. So I decided to start doing research in different areas of medicine, anesthesia, surgery, and finally urology. So when the match season came, I was sitting on my computer trying to write my personal statement, and I was like, "Oh, Jesus, I don't have any clue how to start." So I started like looking online for different editorials companies and people that can help us writing personal statements. And I also asked a friend that she had applied before to the match and she had used these companies. When I told her about one that like caught my attention, she told me, don't use it. I used that before and I didn't like it. Right now I'm using DLA editors and it's completely different than the ones that I have used before. And I was like, okay, explain to me how was it. She said like, well, the other companies, they write your personal statement. In this company with DLA, you have to write your personal statement. You have to see what's going to look good, what's not going to look good, and then the editors are going to walk through the personal statement and say, hey, I think we should talk more about this part, we should talk less about this part, and all that stuff. So that's why I ended up having DLA editors as my company to help me with my personal statement.
Well, that's really interesting. You know, sometimes, especially international medical graduates, they've never written a personal statement before. And a lot of times they're coming from countries or cultures that don't even use a personal statement.
Yeah.
It's a completely new idea to them. And a lot of times they're so afraid that they about the personal statement that they want somebody to write it for them. How did you decide that actually you wanted to be the one to write it with guidance as opposed to have somebody else write it for you?
Well, I didn't decide that's what's going to happen because I didn't want my personal statement. So, I already did everything that I could do in order to have a competitive CV. So, the only thing that was going to make me different from other applicant will be my story, right? So, that's how I decided, okay, this needs to be like the boom of my application. I'm not an excellent writer. Yeah, I write papers, but I'm not a good like talker about myself. So I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, I will say that, but what about if the other person thinks that this is so like, So I said, okay, I'm not that type of person. When she told me that the first encounter that I was going to have with DLA was a talk with the editor, I said, okay, maybe he will guide me and he will tell me, okay, I want you to write this. I want you to write this in the first paragraph. I want you to write this in the second paragraph. And then we're going to end up with this. So that way, all the ideas that I have about my personal statement was going to be like in one place, in like concentrated, and every single sentence was going to mean something. It was not going to be like blah, 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 and that's it. So every single sentence needed to mean something. And that's something that I was sure since I talked with my editor the first time. Like, I think we spent like 1 hour talking by the phone. And I was telling him stuff that I thought that was irrelevant. And he was like, whoa, that's nice. I said, like, seriously?
Nice. And so to get to ask a couple questions about your background, you're from Colombia. Did you actually do residency in Colombia?
No,
Okay.
I didn't
Uh,
practice medicine in Colombia at all.
but you did medical school in Colombia and then came to the United States.
Yeah.
Okay. And how are your step scores?
Oh, my step scores, those are I don't remember, but I think my step 2 CK is 230 and my step 1 is 234. All of them I passed in first step and I was able to do the CS.
Okay. Okay. And then, other than being an IMG, did you have any red flags on your application?
All the 5 years lacking of medical experience that I had. So, and I think DLA editors helped me to address those flags on my personal statement. So I think that was not a like a red flags for the application at all because I addressed that on my personal statement. So they knew that I have that 5 years without medical experience, and even though they knew, they give me interviews.
Yeah.
So
And just briefly, what were you doing during those 5 years without medical experience?
research.
Research. Okay. And then for the match, were you applying only to urology or did you apply to their specialties as well?
Well, my mentors told me to apply to urology and also to apply to prelim surgery, but I didn't receive any interview of prelim surgery.
Okay. Obviously, urology was the goal that you were going for. So you talked about some of the disadvantages and advantages you had as an applicant. Um, you got assistance from DLA not only for your personal statement but also your ARIS
Yeah.
application. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. How much time would you say that you had spent on your personal statement before contacting DLA?
Huh. 2 years. 2 years with an empty Word document.
Okay. Uh, and so when you contacted DLA, did you have any type of draft already written for your personal statement?
No.
No, you were starting completely from scratch.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And so you did the consultation service, uh, and you knew a friend who had used DLA before, and you kind of had some idea of how it would go. How was your experience with DLA? How did the actual experience compare to what your expectations had been?
Okay. So to be honest with you, I wasn't expecting that much. I was expecting like somebody, okay, here's your revision. Do whatever you want to. This is your personal statement, blah, 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 blah. But I find somebody that was like fighting for that personal statement the same way that I was fighting to have a really good personal statement. And I think at the end, my editor got a little bit disappointed with me because I changed my personal statement at the end. And he was like, this personal statement is ready the way it is. But you know what? The solution for that is to we walked through all my personal statement and we were talking about the stuff that I think need to be added. And we figure out, and at the end, we end up with a personal statement that was amazing. And by the way, every single person in my interview has something to say about that personal statement. They told me that they can define that personal statement with one word, and that's determination.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
really great. And so, how many interviews did you get?
So I got 15 interviews,
Okay.
and
And
I got
go ahead. Sorry.
I got waitlisted like on 20.
Okay. And then, so before you applied, how many interviews would you have expected to have gotten?
Zero.
Okay. Uh,
Zero.
and so, of the 15, did you rank all the 15 programs?
No, I only ranked two.
You only ranked two. Why
And I
only
imagined my first one.
why only two programs?
Because so how urology residency works is like you need to see what are your odds to match. Most of the other programs had medical graduates from those schools applying for urology, so I knew that I didn't have a chance, right?
Mhm.
So they interviewed me because they liked my personal statement, but there were these two other universities that I like a lot. One was in the place that I'm living right now, and the other one was on Philadelphia. So yep, I only ranked two.
Okay, and you got into your first choice?
My first choice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what would you say was the greatest benefit you got from using DLA services?
The greatest benefit, the ability to tell my story in short, like all my stories since I was a baby, and in only one page with meaningful words, sentences. That's the most advantage that I had.
That's awesome. And so if you were to give one piece of advice to somebody who might be in your same position, what would you tell them?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Try it. Sometimes other people can talk better about, I don't know how to say it, like somebody could talk better from me than myself. Somebody can tell the story in a different way because he's the receptor. You are the transmitter. So he is the one who can tell you, okay, this is awesome. This is not awesome. Do this, do that. So it's good to have an advice for somebody else outside of your family, outside of your friends that already know you, right?
Yeah.
That's my advice.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing everything today. And once again, congratulations for matching.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add before I let you go?
No, that
Okay.
was.
Well, thanks again, Daniela. We'll talk again soon.
Bye bye, David.
Bye. Bye.